What if I told you the same mysterious symbols keep appearing across the world, carved into ancient temples, hidden in sacred texts, etched onto forgotten artifacts, separated by thousands of miles and centuries, yet eerily identical? These aren't just random markings, they're whispers from our ancestors, a secret code left behind by civilizations who never could have met, yet somehow shared the same visual language. Today, we're unraveling one of history's greatest enigmas, 25 ancient symbols so universal, they defy logic and geography. From the spirals of Newgrange to the labyrinthine patterns of Crete, from the serpentine glyphs of Mesoamerica to the cosmic circles of the Indus Valley, these designs aren't just art. They're clues. Picture standing inside a dimly lit cave, your fingers tracing a symbol carved into the wall thousands of years ago. The shape feels familiar, but you can't quite place it until you remember seeing the same symbol in a documentary about Egypt or on a relic dug up in China. That spine-tingling déjà vu isn't coincidence. It's proof of something deeper, something that connects humanity across time and space. Why would cultures with no possible contact repeat the same symbols again and again? Were they messages to the gods, maps of the cosmos, or warnings we've yet to decipher? The answers might rewrite everything we know about our shared past. This isn't just a list of pretty shapes. It's a detective story spanning continents and millennia, where every symbol is a puzzle piece waiting to snap into place. We'll explore the thunderous power of the zigzag, worshipped from the deserts of Australia to the fjords of Scandinavia. We'll decode the sacred spiral, a symbol so potent it appears in Celtic stonework, Native American petroglyphs, and even the ruins of ancient Malta. And we'll confront the chilling possibility that these symbols weren't just creative coincidence but fragments of a lost global language, one that echoed across mountaintops and oceans long before history began recording its secrets. By the end, you'll never look at a simple circle or line the same way again. The truth is out there, etched in stone, hidden in plain sight. All we have to do is learn to read it. The Ankh is more than just an ancient Egyptian symbol. It's a key to understanding how an entire civilization viewed life, death, and the divine. Shaped like a cross with a loop at the top, this elegant glyph wasn't just decorative. It pulsed with meaning, clutched in the hands of gods and pharaohs alike, a promise of eternal existence. Picture the grand temples of Thebes, where priests carried the Ankh like a sacred torch, pressing it against the lips of the dead to grant them breath in the afterlife. But why this shape? Some scholars believe the loop represents the rising sun, while the crossbar and stem symbolize the horizon, where day and night, life and death eternally meet. Others argue it mimics a sandal strap, grounding the spiritual in the everyday. Whatever its origin, the Ankh became a bridge between worlds. Look closer at the tomb paintings of Osiris, god of the underworld, often depicted holding an Ankh in each hand, his green skin symbolizing rebirth. His sister wife Isis wielded it too, using its power to resurrect him after his murder by Set. Here, the Ankh isn't just an object, it's a narrative device, a tool that stitches together myths of resurrection and cosmic balance. Even Tutankhamun's golden funerary mask bears the symbol, ensuring the boy king would carry its protection into eternity. But the Ankh's reach extends far beyond the Nile. Fast forward to modern times and you'll spot it in Gothic jewelry, tattooed on skin, even printed on streetwear. Why does it still captivate us? Perhaps because it distills a universal longing, not just for life, but for life that transcends. What's fascinating is how the Ankh's meaning shifts across cultures today. For some, it's a spiritual emblem, a nod to ancient wisdom. For others, it's a fashion statement stripped of its sacred weight. Yet in temples from Luxor to Los Angeles, the Ankh endures, its loop unbroken by time. Whether carved into a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus or dangling from a silver chain, it whispers the same question: what if life isn't a straight line but a circle? The Ankh doesn't answer, it simply invites us to wonder. Now shift your gaze from the banks of the Nile to the misty mountains of ancient China, where another universal symbol pulses with quiet power, the Yin-Yang. At first glance, it seems simple. A circle split into two swirling teardrops, one black, one white, each cradling a dot of its opposite. But this deceptively elegant design holds entire philosophies in its curves. Born from Taoist thought over 2,000 years ago, the Yin-Yang doesn't just represent balance, it embodies the very rhythm of existence itself. Picture a river. The water yin flows gently, while the current beneath yang churns with invisible force. Neither can exist without the other. Day needs night, silence needs sound. Even chaos and order are bound together in this endless dance. Dive into its origins, and you'll find the yin-yang woven into the very fabric of Chinese cosmology. Ancient scholars observed how opposites hot and cold, light and dark weren't enemies but partners, constantly transforming into one another. The I Ching, or Book of Changes, used this principle to map the universe's shifting patterns, influencing everything from medicine to martial arts. Traditional Chinese healers saw the body as a landscape of yin-yang energies, where illness arose from imbalance. Even the seasons obeyed this law, the fierce heat of summer yang, gradually softening into autumn's yin coolness. But here's what's truly fascinating. This symbol wasn't locked in temples or reserved for sages. It lived in everyday life. Farmers timed plantings by its wisdom. Architects designed homes to harmonize with its flow. The yin-yang wasn't philosophy, it was practical survival. Fast forward to today, and you'll spot its influence far beyond Asia. Western psychologists borrow its framework to explain the human psyche as light and shadow. Environmentalists use it to advocate for harmony between technology and nature. Pop culture slaps it on skateboards and coffee mugs, sometimes missing its depth but proving its timeless appeal. Yet the real magic lies in those two dots, the black in the white in the black. They whisper a radical idea: nothing is pure. Every strength contains a vulnerability. Every ending hides a beginning. Modern life often pushes us to pick sides, to label things as good or bad. But the yin-yang challenges that. It asks us to hold contradictions gently, to see the moon in the sunlight and the spark in the darkness. After all, isn't that the art of being alive? The swastika carries a weight few symbols in history can match, not just for its visual simplicity, but for the seismic shift in its meaning across millennia. Long before it became a mark of hate, this equilateral cross with bent arms was a universal emblem of harmony, spinning through cultures as diverse as ancient India, Native American tribes, and even early Christian cathedrals. In Sanskrit, the word swastika literally means well-being or good fortune, and for over 5,000 years, that's exactly what it represented. Picture the sun-warmed temples of Mohenjo-Daro, where this symbol adorned pottery and seals, a silent prayer for prosperity, or the Navajo weavers of the American Southwest, weaving it into rugs as a sign of the sacred four directions. In Japan, Buddhist monks traced it on temple gates to invoke the Buddha's footsteps. This wasn't just decoration, it was a cosmic compass, a symbol of life's cyclical nature, its arms forever reaching without end. But how did a sacred glyph become one of history's most charged images? The fracture came in the early 20th century when European archaeologists, digging through ancient sites from Troy to Tibet, began misinterpreting the swastika as an Aryan symbol. This twisted scholarship fed into Nazi ideology, which grafted the swastika onto a red and white banner, wrenching it from its spiritual roots into a tool of terror. The horror of the Holocaust eclipsed the symbol's ancient legacy, leaving many cultures to grapple with its duality. In India, where the swastika still marks doorways during Diwali and wedding invitations, its original meaning endures, yet across much of the West, it's met with visceral recoil. Here's where the swastika's story takes a poignant turn. Some indigenous communities, like the Hopi and Navajo, quietly revived their ancestral ties to the symbol, reclaiming it as part of their cultural identity. Meanwhile, Buddhist temples in Asia continue to display it unapologetically, its arms curling like lotus petals. This tension forces us to confront a difficult truth: symbols don't have fixed meanings. They're mirrors reflecting the best and worst of humanity. The swastika's journey from sacred to scarred reminds us that no image is innocent. It asks us who gets to decide what a symbol represents and whether redemption is possible. Perhaps its greatest lesson lies in its original form, a shape with no beginning or end, inviting us to wrestle with history's unbroken circle. Twist your mind back to the windswept cliffs of ancient Ireland, where a symbol carved into stone seems to move even when it stands still: the Triskelion. Three spiraling arms, forever chasing each other yet never meeting, pulse with the energy of a culture that saw the world in threes. To the Celts, this wasn't just a design. It was a living metaphor, a wheel that never stopped turning. Picture a druid tracing its curves by firelight, seeing in its motion the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, the three phases of the sun, the three realms of earth, sea, and sky. Even the rhythm of Celtic storytelling thrived in triads, echoing the Triskelion's relentless momentum. But why spirals? Unlike static symbols, the Triskelion's curves suggest perpetual motion, a concept sacred to a people who worshipped rivers, whirlwinds, and the turning seasons. Archaeologists find it etched on Neolithic tombs like Newgrange, older than the pyramids, where its spinning arms might have guided souls into the afterlife. Later, Celtic warriors carried it into battle on shields, believing its energy would whirl them forward like a tempest. And here's the fascinating twist: the direction mattered. A clockwise Triskelion signaled growth, while counterclockwise spirals spoke of introspection, a balance between action and wisdom. The Triskelion's legacy didn't vanish with the Celts. Medieval monks smuggled its symbolism into Christian manuscripts, repurposing it as the Holy Trinity. Today, it thrives in unexpected places: the flag of Sicily, where three legs radiate like the sun's rays, or modern logos hinting at progress and innovation. Yet its deepest power lies in its refusal to settle. Unlike closed symbols, the Triskelion's open arms invite us to ask, what if progress isn't a straight line but a sacred spiral, a dance of advancing, retreating, and advancing again? Perhaps that's why, after thousands of years, it still feels alive. Not a relic, but a reminder: movement isn't just change, it's the pulse of existence itself. The Ouroboros coils around itself in an eternal loop, a serpent devouring its own tail, a circle with no beginning or end. This ancient symbol whispers a truth so profound it echoed across civilizations, from the tombs of pharaohs to the scrolls of Greek alchemists. Imagine the first time someone sketched this shape in the sand. Did they realize they'd captured time itself? In Egyptian funerary texts, the Ouroboros wrapped around the world, its scales glinting with the promise of renewal. The sun god Ra sailed through its body each night, dying at dusk only to be reborn at dawn. Here, the serpent wasn't just a creature, it was the universe breathing in and out. Jump to ancient Greece and the Ouroboros takes on new layers. The philosopher Plato described it as the ultimate symbol of self-sufficiency, a perfect, unbroken whole. Gnostic mystics saw it as the boundary between the material world and the divine, a cosmic fence enclosing all existence. But it's in alchemy that the Ouroboros truly flourished. Medieval alchemists scribbled it in the margins of their texts, interpreting its act of self-consumption as the key to transformation. To them, the serpent wasn't destroying itself, it was refining, purging the base to reveal the gold within. The famed Emerald Tablet, a cornerstone of alchemical lore, declared, "What is below is like what is above, and what is above is like what is below." The Ouroboros embodied this hermetic principle, binding macrocosm and microcosm in one relentless cycle. What's striking is how modern science has unwittingly echoed this ancient wisdom. The double helix of DNA with its serpentine curves mirrors the Ouroboros form. Ecologists point to food web's predators and prey locked in an endless dance of consumption and rebirth. Even the concept of infinity, that sideways 8, feels like a distant cousin to the serpent's loop. Yet the Ouroboros isn't just about repetition. Look closer and you'll spot the moment where the serpent's jaws meet its tail, not an ending but a threshold. Every bite is an act of creation, a reminder that destruction and renewal are two sides of the same coin. Today, the Ouroboros slithers through pop culture, from fantasy novels to tattoo parlors, often stripped of its depth. But its original power lingers. In a world obsessed with linear progress, more, faster, newer, the Ouroboros offers a radical alternative. What if the goal isn't to climb endlessly but to turn inward? To shed what no longer serves us and emerge again and again, renewed? The serpent doesn't answer. It simply spins, silent and sure, inviting us to consider that the most profound journeys might not move forward, but inward and back again. The Eye of Horus gleams from ancient Egyptian tombs like a watchful guardian, its unmistakable shape part human eye, part falcon's marking etched into amulets, sarcophagi, and temple walls. This wasn't just a symbol of protection, it was a cosmic lifeline woven into the very fabric of a civilization obsessed with eternity. To understand its power, you have to step into the sandals of an Egyptian priest, grinding malachite into vibrant green pigment to paint the eye onto a pharaoh's coffin. Why? Because this symbol was the ultimate shield against chaos. In myth, Horus, the falcon-headed god, lost his left eye in a brutal battle with his uncle Set, the embodiment of disorder. The god Thoth miraculously restored it, and from that moment the eye became a talisman of healing and resurrection. But here's where it gets fascinating. The Egyptians didn't just venerate the eye, they reverse-engineered it. Break down its design, and you'll uncover a mathematical masterpiece. Each section of the eye, the eyebrow, pupil, and teardrop, corresponds to a fraction in the Egyptian numerical system, adding up to 63/64, with the missing piece symbolizing Thoth's magic. These weren't arbitrary lines, they were a geometric prayer, a way to encode divine harmony into everyday life. Healers used the eye's proportions to calculate medicinal doses, while architects scaled temples by its ratios, believing structures built with these measurements would channel celestial protection. The eye wasn't just art, it was sacred math, a blueprint for balance in a universe teetering between order and entropy. Now, imagine the bustling streets of Thebes, where merchants sold Eye of Horus amulets to mothers, slipping them into their children's linen wrappings, or sailors sewing them onto sails before braiding the Nile's treacherous currents. Even the pharaohs wielded its power. Tutankhamun's death mask features the eye alongside the vulture and cobra, a trifecta of sovereignty, but the real twist. The eye's legacy outlasted the pharaohs. Greek and Roman surgeons adopted its healing sigil. Early Christians repurposed it as the all-seeing Eye of Providence, and today you'll spot it in pharmacies worldwide, hidden in the rod of Asclepius. The Eye of Horus endures because it answers a primal human fear, that the world is unpredictable and we are fragile. It whispers that even in brokenness there's a pattern, a promise that what's shattered can be made whole again. So next time you see that familiar curve and pupil, remember, you're not just looking at an ancient doodle. You're glimpsing a 4,000-year-old algorithm for survival, a testament to humanity's stubborn belief that even in the darkest night, something watches over us. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep the chaos at bay. Imagine holding a universe in the palm of your hand, a shimmering circle radiating intricate patterns, bursting with color yet perfectly balanced. That's the mandala, a sacred geometric marvel born in ancient India and perfected in Tibetan monasteries. More than just art, these elaborate designs are cosmic blueprints, maps of enlightenment, and tools for transformation. In Sanskrit, mandala simply means circle, but its meaning spirals far deeper. Picture a Hindu priest kneeling before a freshly drawn mandala, his fingers tracing concentric squares and lotus petals that represent Mount Meru, the axis of the universe. Or a Tibetan monk spending weeks painstakingly sprinkling colored sands into a breathtaking design, only to sweep it away in a ritual of impermanence. Every line, every hue is a meditation in motion. At its core, the mandala mirrors the structure of existence itself, the outer circle, a boundary between chaos and order, the inner layers guiding the viewer toward the sacred center. Hindu tantric traditions use mandalas as gateways to the divine, with deities positioned like celestial guardians at each compass point. Meanwhile, Tibetan Buddhists see them as palaces of wisdom, where every corridor and courtyard symbolizes a step on the path to awakening. The Kalachakra mandala, one of the most complex, maps time and space in a dizzying array of interlocking shapes, a spiritual clockwork designed to align the practitioner with cosmic rhythms. But here's what's truly fascinating. Mandalas aren't just to be seen, they're to be lived. Monks chant over them, visualizing themselves journeying inward, shedding ego layer by layer like petals falling from a flower. Psychologist Carl Jung later recognized their universal power, observing how patients spontaneously drew mandala-like shapes during therapy, as if the psyche instinctively reached for wholeness through symmetry. Today, you'll find their influence everywhere, from the rose windows of Gothic cathedrals to the hypnotic crop circles etched into fields. Even coloring books boast mandala designs, promising stress relief through their rhythmic repetition. Yet whether sketched in sand or pixels, the message remains the same. Chaos finds order at the center. The mandala whispers that within life's seeming randomness, there's a pattern waiting to be followed, one spiral, one breath, one step at a time. The caduceus gleams in ancient Greek art, twin serpents spiraling up a winged staff, an emblem so striking it's now plastered on ambulances and hospital signs worldwide. But here's the twist: its original meaning had nothing to do with healing. This was the scepter of Hermes, the fleet-footed messenger god, a trickster who guided souls to the underworld and haggled with thieves. Picture him darting between Olympus and earth, the caduceus in hand, its serpents whispering of duality, life and death, truth and deception, commerce and cunning. To the Greeks, those entwined snakes symbolized balance, not medicine, while the wings hinted at Hermes' role as a psychopomp, ferrying spirits across realms. Even its name, caduceus, derives from the Greek karaikion, meaning herald's wand, a tool for declaring truces, not curing fevers. So how did a symbol of negotiation become shorthand for doctors? Blame a mix-up in 19th century military insignia. The United States Army Medical Corps, scrambling to design uniforms, mistakenly adopted the caduceus instead of the rod of Asclepius, the true medical emblem featuring a single serpent coiled around a rough-hewn staff. Asclepius, the demigod physician worshipped in sanctuaries where snakes slithered freely as symbols of renewal, had no wings on his rod, no second serpent. The error stuck, spreading through textbooks, pharmacies, and pop culture until the caduceus eclipsed its planar cousin. Today, the two symbols duel for legitimacy. Purists argue the rod of Asclepius deserves its rightful place, while others shrug, embracing the caduceus for its visual flair. Dive deeper, and the serpents reveal another layer. In Mesopotamian myths, entwined snakes represented fertility and wisdom, a motif that migrated to Greece through trade routes. Alchemists later hijacked the caduceus, interpreting its serpents as opposing forces, Mercury and sulfur, united in the quest for gold. Even Freud weighed in, seeing the staff as a metaphor for the spine, with serpents channeling Kundalini energy. Yet perhaps the most poignant irony lies in Hermes himself, a god who trafficked in boundaries. His symbol, once marking the liminal space between worlds, now hangs in emergency rooms, a silent witness to the thin line between life and death. The caduceus doesn't heal. It reminds some crossings, like identity and meaning, are never as simple as they seem. The triquetra weaves its way through history like an unbroken thread, three interlocking arcs forming a shape so fluid it seems to dance even when carved in stone. Originating in the Iron Age, this Celtic knot wasn't just decoration, it was a sacred equation, a visual hymn to the number 3, which pulsed through Celtic spirituality like a heartbeat. Picture a druid tracing its curves under the oak groves, seeing in its loops the triple phases of the moon, the three realms of land, sea, and sky, or the life cycle of maiden, mother, and crone. Unlike rigid symbols, the triquetra's continuous line had no beginning or end, echoing the Celts' belief in eternal renewal. But what's mesmerizing is its geometric precision. Each arc perfectly spaced, each curve a mirror of the others, creating a balance so exact it feels almost supernatural. Archaeologists find it etched on runestones from Ireland to Norway, a testament to its hold over the northern imagination. Then came Christianity, and the triquetra took on new layers. Monks illuminating manuscripts like the Book of Kells adapted it as a metaphor for the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit bound in one indivisible unity. Here, the symbol's lack of angles spoke volumes. Divinity couldn't be contained by sharp edges. Yet the triquetra never fully shed its pagan roots. In medieval Europe, it appeared on protective amulets alongside crosses, a quiet nod to older magics hiding in plain sight. Fast forward to today, and you'll spot it in jewelry, tattoos, and even TV shows like Charmed, where it symbolized the power of 3. Modern pagans reclaim it as an emblem of feminine divinity, while neo-druids see it as a bridge to ancestral wisdom. What makes the triquetra timeless isn't just its beauty, it's its adaptability. A shape that once honored land spirits now graces Trinity Church stained glass. A knot that guided souls through Celtic twilight now inspires mathematicians studying infinity. Its threefold symmetry whispers that all truths are interconnected, that faiths and philosophies might just be different paths spiraling toward the same center. The triquetra doesn't argue, it simply spins, inviting us to ponder, what if the past, present, and future aren't separate, but one endless braid? Lost in a blizzard so thick you can't see your own hand, an Icelandic sailor clutches a piece of wood carved with strange, angular lines. A Vegvísir, his last hope against the storm's fury. This isn't just a wayfinder, it's a spell made visible, a Norse talisman whispered to guide wanderers through the worst fog, the most treacherous seas, even the boundaries between worlds. Unlike the clean geometry of a modern compass, the Vegvísir sprawls like a sunburst, its 8 arms bristling with runic staves, each one a frozen lightning bolt of ancient magic. Found in the Huld manuscript, a 17th-century Icelandic grimoire, its instructions are chillingly simple. Carry this sign, and you won't lose your way in storms or bad weather, even if the path is unknown. But here's the catch, this wasn't some dusty relic from the Viking Age. It emerged centuries later, a haunting echo of older beliefs. Dig into its design, and you'll uncover layers of Viking pragmatism and mysticism. Those 8 arms, they mirror the Mjolnir, the Helm of Or, another Norse symbol used to instill fear in enemies. Yet where the helm was a weapon, the Vegvísir was a shield, a celestial map scratched onto driftwood or skin, offering safe passage through realms both physical and spiritual. Picture a ship's captain tracing its lines before a voyage, or a mother sewing it into her child's cloak as protection against getting lost. This wasn't mere superstition. It was survival tech for a people who braved the North Atlantic's merciless waters. The Vegvísir didn't just point north, it promised return, a lifeline to hearth and home when the world turned white with chaos. Modern eyes might dismiss it as folklore, but the symbolism cuts deeper. The Vegvísir's radial symmetry mirrors sun compasses Vikings likely used, their wooden discs calibrated to track shadows even under cloud cover. Some scholars argue it's a descendant of the medieval Volva staffs, tools wielded by Norse seeresses to navigate fate itself. And then there's the eerie parallel to the Labyrinth of Crete, both spiral path symbols meant to guide travelers through uncertainty. Today, you'll spot the Vegvísir in tattoo parlors and fantasy lore, often stripped of its grim origins. Yet its power lingers. In an age of GPS and satellites, why does this archaic compass still resonate? Perhaps because every journey, literal or metaphorical, has its storms. The Vegvísir whispers that even when the stars vanish and the winds scream, there's a pattern hidden in the chaos if you know how to read it. Beneath the murky waters of a stagnant pond, something extraordinary is happening. A lotus seed buried in sludge for years stirs to life. Its roots claw through darkness until suddenly, impossibly, it bursts through the surface in a blaze of pink and gold. This isn't just a flower. It's a revolution in petals, a living paradox that thrives in filth yet emerges unstained. Across Asia, the lotus isn't merely admired, it's worshipped, a botanical miracle that became the ultimate metaphor for the human spirit. In Hinduism, the lotus blooms from the navel of Vishnu, cradling the god Brahma as he orchestrates creation. Its unfolding petals mirror the universe itself, expanding, layer by layer, while its stems tether the divine to the mundane. Walk into any temple from Chennai to Kathmandu, and you'll find deities perched on lotus thrones: Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, each embodying the flower's promise. Enlightenment isn't about escaping the world, but transforming it. The Bhagavad Gita compares a wise person to the lotus, untouched by water, unstuck by sin, rising above chaos without denying its existence. Buddhism takes this further. The lotus's journey from mud to majesty mirrors the path to nirvana. Notice how Buddha statues always show him seated or standing on lotus flowers, never beside them. This is deliberate. The mud isn't an obstacle, it's the raw material of awakening. Tibetan monks chant Om Mani Padme Hum, meaning the jewel in the lotus, a mantra encapsulating the idea that wisdom grows from life's very hardships. Even the flower's biology whispers secrets. Its leaves repel water, symbolizing detachment, while its hollow stems represent the emptiness central to Buddhist philosophy. But here's what's mind-blowing. The lotus doesn't just symbolize resilience, it engineers it. Scientists studying its leaves discovered the lotus effect, where microscopic structures make water bead and roll off, carrying dirt with it. This self-cleaning property inspired stain-resistant fabrics and even anti-fogging glass. Meanwhile, lotus seeds excavated from ancient peat bogs, dormant for over 1,000 years, have still sprouted when given light and water. No wonder the lotus became a global icon. It doesn't just preach survival, it demonstrates it with biochemical brilliance. From the Dalai Lama's teachings to Silicon Valley leadership seminars, the lotus endures because it answers a universal hunger. In a world obsessed with sanitized perfection, it reminds us that growth is messy, that roots need anchors, and that the most breathtaking beauty often starts where we least expect, deep in the mud, reaching for the sun. The pentagram blazes through history like a geometric wildfire, a five-pointed star so potent it's been carved into Babylonian clay tablets, etched onto medieval shields, and even scrawled in Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. At first glance, it's just intersecting lines, but look closer and you'll uncover a shape that's been worshipped, feared, and misunderstood across millennia. Start with the Pythagoreans, the ancient Greek cult of mathematicians who saw it as the ultimate symbol of perfection. To them, the pentagram embodied the golden ratio, its proportions echoing in everything from seashell spirals to human anatomy. They called it Hygeia, meaning health, tracing its lines in secret rituals to represent the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, and the ether, that mysterious fifth essence binding the cosmos. Jump to medieval Europe and the pentagram takes on a darker sheen. Knights Templar engraved it on their swords as protection, while alchemists layered it with planetary symbols, believing it could harness celestial forces. In the Key of Solomon, a grimoire whispered to hold kingly power, the pentagram becomes a flaming star, a weapon to command spirits when drawn in blood or ink. But here's the twist, it wasn't evil, not yet. Farmers nailed inverted pentagrams above barn doors to ward off witches, and doctors slipped the symbol into medicinal recipes, trusting its balance to heal. The shift came with the 19th century, when occultists like Eliphas Levi reimagined it: the upright star for divine harmony, the inverted one for rebellion. Pop culture ran with the latter, cementing its demonic reputation in horror films and heavy metal lore. Yet the pentagram's true power lies in its duality. In Wicca, it cradles the sacred feminine, each point honoring spirit, earth, air, fire, and water. Japanese samurai wore it as the Gojo crest, symbolizing the 5 Confucian virtues. Even the U.S. pentagon, whether by accident or design, echoes its shape. What makes this star endure isn't its edges, but its elasticity, a symbol that bends but never breaks, adapting to cultures that claim it. Whether etched in a witch's circle or hidden in a church's stained glass, the pentagram whispers a truth older than dogma. Geometry isn't just math, it's magic. The labyrinth gleams from ancient frescoes like a bolt of frozen lightning, a double-headed axe so symmetrical it seems to defy gravity. This wasn't just a tool, it was a sacred object clutched in the hands of Minoan priestesses on the sun-drenched island of Crete over 3,000 years ago. Picture the palace of Knossos, its labyrinthine corridors echoing with the whispers of bull leapers and snake goddesses, where the labyrinth wasn't merely ceremonial. It was the heartbeat of a civilization that revered the divine feminine. Archaeologists find it etched on altars, woven into murals of bare-breasted goddesses flanked by lions, their power radiating like the axe's dual blades. Here, the labyrinth wasn't a weapon of war, it was a symbol of creation and destruction, the 2 faces of nature's cycle, held in perfect balance by women who ruled both temple and state. But why 2 blades? Unlike the single-headed axes of invading Mycenaeans, the labyrinth's duality spoke a language of sacred symmetry. Some scholars believe each blade represented the waxing and waning moon, tracking time's passage in a culture that worshipped lunar deities. Others argue it mirrored the horns of the sacred bull, an animal central to Minoan rites. The most tantalizing theory ties it to the labyrinth itself, that legendary maze said to house the Minotaur. The word labyrinth may derive from labyrinth, suggesting these axes marked ritual dance paths where worshippers spiraled inward, reenacting journeys of death and rebirth. Imagine young initiates tracing the labyrinth's shape with their feet, their movements a prayer for transformation. The labyrinth's legacy didn't vanish with the Minoans. Greek myths later appropriated it, placing it in the hands of Amazons and the god Zeus, who wielded it to split open his mother's womb, a violent twist on its original maternal symbolism. Yet in modern times, it's been reclaimed as an emblem of lesbian and feminist solidarity, its blades now slashing through patriarchal norms, from the tattooed arms of riot jobbers to the banners of queer liberation marches. The labyrinth whispers an ancient truth: power isn't about dominance but balance. It asks us who gets to rewrite history and who still carries the axe. The Sun Cross blazes through history like a celestial clock, its equal-armed cross encased in a circle, a design so simple yet so universal it appeared simultaneously in places that never could have met. Carved into Neolithic stone slabs in Ireland, scratched onto Bronze Age artifacts in Scandinavia, painted on Native American shields, this symbol's reach defies geography. At its core, it's a portrait of the sun's journey, the 4 arms marking solstices and equinoxes, the circle binding them into an eternal cycle. Picture a Stone Age shaman in what's now Germany, chiseling this shape onto a mammoth tusk as winter solstice dawn breaks, believing the symbol itself could summon back the light. Or Viking navigators in open longships, tattooing sun crosses onto their wrists as talismans against the endless dark of northern seas. This wasn't decoration. It was a survival map, a way to pin hope to the sky when the world seemed bent on vanishing. But here's where the sun cross gets complicated. The same symbol that guided pagan farmers became the wheel of the chariot of the Norse sun goddess Sol, then later snuck into early Christian manuscripts as the solar cross, a quiet compromise between old and new faiths. Churches in medieval Ireland and Britain recycled sun cross carvings into their walls, baptizing them with new meaning. The circle now framed Christ's sacrifice, while the arms whispered of the four evangelists. Even the famous Celtic high crosses, those towering stone sermons, evolved from this ancient template. The genius of the sun cross was its adaptability. It could be a pagan calendar, a Christian emblem, or both at once, depending on who held the chisel. Modern archaeology reveals even deeper layers. Some scholars argue the sun cross wasn't just spiritual, it was prehistoric tech. The alignment of its arms matches megalithic observatories like Newgrange, where sunlight pierces a tomb's inner chamber only on the winter solstice. Farmers may have used its shape to time plantings, its geometry encoding agricultural wisdom passed down through generations. Today, you'll spot its legacy in unexpected places. The steering wheels of cars echo its form, as do compass roses on nautical charts. A symbol that once tracked the heavens now helps us navigate highways and oceans. The sun cross reminds us that some designs are too fundamental to fade. Whether etched in stone or printed on paper, it still tells the oldest story we know: the sun will rise again. Count on it. The Hamsa dangles from rearview mirrors in Tel Aviv, guards doorways in Marrakech, and gleams as pendants in downtown boutiques. A hand-shaped amulet so universally cherished it bridges faiths that often clash. Known as the Hand of Fatima in Islam, the Hand of Miriam in Judaism, and sometimes linked to the Virgin Mary in Christianity, this symbol's 5 fingers stretch across religious divides like an open palm offering peace. But what makes the Hamsa extraordinary isn't just its ubiquity, it's the way it channels humanity's oldest fear, the evil eye. Picture a Berber mother in the Atlas Mountains pressing a Hamsa to her newborn's crib, or a Jewish grandmother in Jerusalem spitting 3 times poo, 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 to amplify its power against envy's invisible poison. The Hamsa doesn't discriminate, it protects. Delve into its design and you'll find layers of sacred geometry. The downward pointing hand, often cradling an eye or etched with Hebrew psalms, mirrors the body's own protective reflexes, instinctively raising a palm to shield from harm. In Islamic tradition, the 5 fingers represent the pillars of faith, while Kabbalists link them to the 5 books of the Torah. Some versions bloom with lotus motifs or fish scales, symbols of fertility and good fortune borrowed from ancient Phoenician traders who first spread the Hamsa across the Mediterranean. Archaeologists have unearthed variants in Carthaginian ruins and Byzantine churches, proving its appeal predates modern religions. Yet the Hamsa's real magic lies in its duality. It's both armor and olive branch. During Spain's convivencia, when Muslims, Jews, and Christians forged a rare coexistence, the Hamsa adorned synagogues and mosques alike. Today, you'll spot it in conflict zones, worn by soldiers and activists as a silent plea for mutual recognition. Even secular culture embraces it. Madonna flaunted a gem-encrusted Hamsa during her Kabbalah phase, while designers slap its silhouette on everything from phone cases to surfboards. But strip away the trendiness and the Hamsa still thrums with primal urgency. In a world where envy and division fester, it answers with open fingers, not a fist but a shield. Not a weapon but a wish. May no ill gaze touch you here. Among the misty groves of ancient Britain, where druids whispered secrets to the oak trees, a symbol flickered like dawn light through the leaves. The on. 3 vertical lines crowned with 3 dots, this elegant glyph wasn't mere decoration. It was the heartbeat of Celtic wisdom, a visual hymn to inspiration itself. Picture a bard tuning his harp by firelight, tracing the Orn's lines in the air before reciting verses believed to channel divine truth, the 3 rays. They sang of the triple nature of existence: land, sea, and sky, past, present, and future, the harmony of body, mind, and spirit. but those tiny dots above each line held mystery too. Some say they represented the 3 drops of wisdom from the cauldron of the goddess Ceridwen, a sacred brew that could grant enlightenment or madness. The Orn's power lay in its balance. Unlike rigid symbols, its rays weren't static but fluid, like sunlight piercing a forest canopy. Druids saw it as a bridge between realms, the left ray facing outward the masculine, the right ray inward the feminine, and the central beam uniting them in equilibrium. Modern archaeologists have found its traces on pre-Christian stones in Wales, though its fullest flowering came in medieval manuscripts like the Book of Taliesin, where poets invoked it as a muse. Yet here's the twist: the Orn vanished under Roman conquest and Christianization, only to re-emerge centuries later like a seed finally breaking ground. Today, the Orn thrives in neo-Druid circles and Celtic revival movements, tattooed on skin or etched onto ritual staves. Contemporary Druids interpret its rays as the flow of energy between teacher, student, and the divine. Musicians like Dam the Bard weave it into album art, while environmentalists adopt it as an emblem of humanity's connection to nature. The Orn's revival speaks to a hunger for what the ancients knew, that inspiration isn't just a spark but a sacred current. To draw this symbol is to invite the universe to whisper back, and perhaps that's why it endures. In a fractured world, the Orn still promises wholeness 3 lines at a time. Running like an eternal river across the facades of Greek temples and the rims of classical vases, the meander, better known today as the Greek key, is more than a decorative border. It's a labyrinth in miniature, a geometric whisper of infinity carved in stone. Picture the Parthenon's marble frieze, where this relentless pattern unfolds in perfect symmetry, each right-angled turn locking into the next with mathematical precision. To call it a design feels almost dismissive. This was sacred geometry, a visual ode to the unbroken, the eternal flow of life, the cyclical nature of time, the unyielding path of destiny. The meander's power lies in its simplicity. A single line, doubled back upon itself, creates a motif that could theoretically stretch forever without repeating or breaking. Ancient Greek philosophers saw in this a metaphor for the universe itself. Heraclitus famously declared, "No man steps in the same river twice," and the meander embodies that same ceaseless flux. Archaeologists have found it etched into Minoan pottery from Crete dating back to 2000 BCE, proving its grip on the Mediterranean imagination long before the Acropolis rose. But it wasn't just Greece. Variations of this pattern appear in Chinese bronze vessels, Aztec codices, and even Celtic metalwork, as if cultures separated by continents shared a subconscious pull toward this primal rhythm. Walk through the ruins of Ephesus or Delphi, and you'll spot the meander framing mosaics, tracing the edges of altars, even winding around columns like a stone serpent. Its prevalence in architecture wasn't accidental. Greek builders believed the pattern warded off evil spirits. Its unbroken line left no gap for malice to slip through. Later, Roman villas adopted it as a status symbol, flaunting the meander's complexity to signal wealth and refinement. Yet the most haunting iteration might be in funerary art, where it often bordered sarcophagi, a silent promise that death wasn't an end but a bend in an endless road. Modern mathematicians recognize the meander as an early fractal, a self-replicating shape that foreshadowed chaos theory. Fashion designers crib its lines for runway prints, and tattoo artists ink it as a tribute to resilience. But the meander's deepest magic, it asks no faith to feel its pull. Trace a finger along its path, and you're touching the same obsession that gripped a Greek artisan 3,000 years ago, the human hunger to map the infinite, one right angle at a time. The thunderbolt splits the sky, a jagged streak of white-hot fury that has terrified and awed humanity since the first storms. No symbol captures raw divine power quite like this one, wielded by gods across Indo-European cultures as the ultimate weapon and emblem of sovereignty. Start with Zeus, the Olympian king whose very identity was bound to the lightning bolt. Greek poets described his arsenal with reverence, bronze forged by the Cyclops, each bolt etched with the words to Zeus. When he hurled them, mountains shattered and titans trembled, but this wasn't just destruction, it was order. Zeus's lightning enforced cosmic law, striking down oath-breakers and usurpers with terrifying precision. Temples from Dodona to Olympia displayed the thunderbolt on altars, a reminder that the gods' will wasn't just absolute, it was electric. Now cross the continent to the Himalayas, where the thunderbolt takes a different but equally potent form, the Vajra. In Vedic texts, this ritual weapon belonged to Indra, the storm god who shattered drought with thunderstorms and vanquished chaos serpents like Vritra. Crafted from the bones of a sage, the Vajra wasn't a single bolt but a diamond-hard scepter with prongs at both ends, unbreakable, indestructible. Hinduism and Buddhism later adopted it as a symbol of enlightenment's sudden flash, the moment ignorance shatters like a monsoon cloud. Tibetan monks still use bronze Vajras in rituals, their smooth metal echoing the unshakable clarity of the awakened mind. The irony is striking. What began as a weapon of war became a tool of peace, its jagged edges softened by philosophy. What ties these thunder wielders together? Kingship. From Mycenaean warlords to Hindu Rajas, rulers claimed the thunderbolt's imagery to legitimize their rule. A Hittite relief shows the weather god Tesha brandishing lightning while standing on a mountain literally elevated above mortals. Norse legends told of Thor, whose hammer Mjolnir summoned storms and consecrated royal marriages. Even the Proto-Indo-European root Perkunos, meaning striker, birthed the names of thunder gods from the Baltic Perkunas to the Slavic Perun. The message was universal: control the sky and you control the earth. Modern science has demystified lightning, yet the thunderbolt's symbolic voltage still crackles. Militaries slap it on aircraft insignia, electric companies weave it into logos, and comic book artists crown their superheroes with zigzag emblems. Deep down, we still flinch at the sound of thunder, not because we fear the gods, but because some symbols strike faster than reason, electrifying our oldest instincts for power, protection, and the sublime terror of the storm. Roots claw deep into the underworld, branches scrape the heavens. No symbol captures the spine of existence quite like the tree of life, a motif so universal it erupts independently across deserts, tundras, and jungles. Begin with Yggdrasil, the gargantuan ash tree of Norse myth, its trunk groaning under the weight of 9 realms. Picture it, serpent dragons gnawing its roots, the eagle Vedafölnir screeching from its crown, and the squirrel Ratatosk frantically carrying insults between them. This wasn't just a tree, it was a cosmic telegraph system, vibrating with the gossip of gods and the groans of the doomed. Vikings believed Odin hung himself from Yggdrasil for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, to steal the secrets of runes. The price, an eye; the reward, wisdom so vast it echoed through the roots themselves. Now shift south to the fiery heart of Kabbalah, where the tree of life isn't a plant but a metaphysical circuit board, 10 glowing spheres called Sephiroth, connected by 22 paths of divine lightning. Each Sephirah pulses with a unique aspect of God's essence, from stern justice Jebura to boundless love Chesed. Medieval Jewish mystics mapped this tree onto the human body, the cosmos, even the structure of the Torah itself. To climb it through meditation was to spiritually evolve, balancing severity and mercy like a tightrope walker over the abyss. The Zohar, Kabbalah's foundational text, describes these spheres as fruits glowing with supernatural light, ripening with the souls of the righteous. But perhaps the oldest iteration sprouts from Mesopotamian clay tablets, where the tree of life twines through the epic of Gilgamesh. In the ziggurat carvings of Assyria, it's flanked by winged gennies or kings, its branches heavy with pomegranates, symbols of immortality that Gilgamesh himself failed to steal. Archaeologists find its image stamped on cylinder seals from 4000 BCE, often paired with the serpent, hinting at a lost Eden-like myth far predating the Bible. What unites these trees across time and faith? They're all crossroads. Yggdrasil's roots drink from wells of fate, memory, and primordial ooze. Kabbalah's tree channels divine energy like a spiritual power grid. The Mesopotamian version guarded the boundary between mortal and divine. Each iteration whispers the same truth. Wisdom isn't plucked effortlessly from a branch. It's wrestled from the trunk, earned through sacrifice, and always shared. Whether in Viking longships or yeshivas, these trees remind us that to know life, you must first embrace its gnarls, its storms, and the creatures that crawl in its shadows. Beneath the golden sands of Egypt, where the Nile's lifeblood meets the desert's silence, stands a symbol so rooted in power it was carved into temple walls for millennia, the Djed pillar. At first glance, it resembles a tree stripped of branches, its 4 horizontal bars stacked like vertebrae. But this was no ordinary column. It was the backbone of a god, the very spine of Osiris, lord of the underworld, whose myth of death and resurrection became the heartbeat of Egyptian spirituality. Picture the climax of the Osiris myth. His treacherous brother Set dismembers him, scattering his body across the Nile Delta. Isis, his devoted wife, gathers every piece except one. His spine, lost to the river's depths, is replaced by the first Djed, a divine prosthetic that becomes the axis of his rebirth. Every year during the Heb-Sed festival, priests would raise the Djed pillar in a ritual so charged with drama it could rival modern theater. The act wasn't just ceremonial, it was a reenactment of Osiris's resurrection. A spine jerked upright from death's grip, signaling renewal for both the god and the land. But the Djed's magic didn't stop at mythology. Step into the hypostyle hall of Karnak, and you'll find towering columns shaped like bundled reeds, a direct architectural echo of the Djed. These weren't just structural supports, they were stone prayers for stability, each one a plea to Osiris to keep Egypt unshaken by famine, invasion, or chaos. The Djed's design, with its widening base, mirrored the trunk of a palm tree, an organism that bends but never breaks, even in the fiercest Khamsin winds. Farmers would paint it on granary walls to safeguard their harvests, while pharaohs had it embroidered into their coronation robes, its presence a silent vow. As Osiris endures, so shall my reign. Here's where the Djed reveals its genius. It wasn't just a symbol of strength, but of connection. Archaeologists note its resemblance to the human spine's sacrum, the bone the Egyptians called the indestructible, believing it housed the soul's final remnant after death. In medical papyri, the Djed appears beside spells for healing back injuries, its shape a conduit for Osiris's restorative power. Even the hieroglyph for stability was a Djed perched on a basket, as if to say endurance requires both divine favor and earthly effort. Today, the Djed's legacy lingers in unexpected places. Neuroscientists marvel at its similarity to the spinal column's stacked discs, while modern engineers cite its tapered form as an early lesson in load-bearing design. But perhaps its most haunting echo is in our language. The word Djed shares a root with the Egyptian term for to speak permanence. It whispers that true stability isn't about rigidity, but resilience, the ability to rise again and again, even when the world tries to bury you. The Djed doesn't just stand, it endures. Breathe in and imagine a mountain, not of rock but of pure geometry, its slopes etched with intersecting triangles so precise they hum with sacred energy. This is the Sri Yantra, a kaleidoscopic masterpiece from ancient India that doesn't just depict the cosmos, it is the cosmos crystallized into lines and angles. At first glance, it looks like an intricate snowflake trapped in a square frame, but to Hindu and Tantric practitioners, this is the ultimate meditation tool, a spiritual GPS guiding the soul from earthly chaos to divine unity. The Sri Yantra's power lies in its layers, 9 interlocking triangles, 5 pointing downward, representing the feminine Shakti energy, and 4 pointing upward, symbolizing masculine Shiva, crisscrossed to form 43 smaller triangles, each a chamber of cosmic significance. The outermost square, that's Bupora, the earthly realm, its gates guarded by deities. Move inward, and you pass through concentric circles of lotus petals, fire, and water, until reaching the central point, the Bindu absolute consciousness itself. Meditators don't just gaze at the Sri Yantra, they travel it, visualizing their awareness spiraling inward like a needle threading through dimensions. What's astonishing is the mathematics. The Sri Yantra's angles adhere to the golden ratio, its lines so precise that even a millimeter's deviation is said to nullify its power. Ancient artisans likely used ropes and pegs to plot its curves, a technique echoing Vedic altar construction. But here's the mind-bending part. Modern physicists note how its overlapping triangles resemble string theory diagrams, multidimensional vibrations mapped in sacred geometry. The Sri Yantra doesn't just symbolize harmony, it calculates it, its ratios mirroring the cosmic intervals described in Hindu texts about sound creating matter. Yet the Sri Yantra isn't locked in temples. Entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley slap it on office walls for strategic clarity, while New Age shops sell cheap posters stripped of context. But in a Kerala ashram, priests still trace it in turmeric paste during Divi pujas, chanting as the scent of sandalwood thickens the air, the Sri Yantra's brilliance. It's both map and territory, a reminder that the universe isn't just out there. It's in the lines, the angles, the spaces between. To meditate on it isn't to escape the world, but to uncover the scaffolding behind it. Nothing strikes fear or reverence quite like the sight of Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer crashing down from the heavens in a blaze of lightning. For the Vikings, this wasn't just a weapon, it was a sacred object, a thunderous embodiment of protection, consecration, and raw divine authority. Picture a Norse warrior gripping a small silver amulet shaped like Mjolnir before battle, whispering prayers to Thor as storm clouds gathered overhead. These hammer pendants weren't mere decorations, they were spiritual armor believed to deflect curses, bless marriages, and even hallow funeral pyres, ensuring the dead reached Valhalla. Archaeologists have unearthed them from Ireland to Ukraine, some buried in hoards beside Christian crosses, a proof of how fiercely this symbol endured even as Scandinavia converted. But what made Mjolnir so potent? The myths paint it as a tool of both destruction and creation. When Thor swung it, giants fell and mountains split. Yet it also resurrected his goats after feasts, a paradox that captivated believers. Its short handle, supposedly due to a trickster god's interference, became a lesson in imperfection, power balanced by humility. The hammer wasn't just wielded, it was animated. Poets described it as crushing or grinding, verbs that made it feel less like an object and more like a force of nature. Even its name, Mjolnir, likely stems from the Old Norse word for to grind or to pulverize, a nod to its dual role as weapon and farm tool, smashing skulls one moment, milling grain the next. Modern heathenry has revived Mjolnir with striking devotion. Walk into a contemporary blot ceremony, and you might see a hammer being passed over offerings to bless them, mirroring ancient rites. Blacksmiths craft replicas with painstaking care, some embedding meteorite iron, a tribute to Thor's celestial might. Yet the symbol's resurgence isn't without tension. White supremacists have hijacked Viking imagery, twisting Mjolnir into a hateful emblem, prompting heathen groups to loudly reclaim it for inclusivity. The irony is profound. A hammer once used to hallow bonds now fights to protect its own meaning. Mjolnir's enduring appeal lies in its contradictions. It's a weapon that heals, a divine artifact shaped by mischief, and a relic of the past that still sparks lightning in living hands. Whether dangling from a goth's neck or inked on a soldier's arm, it carries the same primal plea: keep me safe. Make me strong, and perhaps that's why it still thunders through time, not just as a myth, but as a mirror for anyone who's ever needed to feel unbreakable. The spiral winds its way through human history like an unbroken thread, one of the oldest and most persistent symbols carved into the very bones of our planet. Picture standing inside Newgrange, Ireland's 5,000-year-old passage tomb, where a stone slab glows with triple spirals illuminated by the winter solstice sunrise, a moment when sunlight and stone unite in a sacred geometry older than the pyramids. This isn't just decoration, it's a cipher from the Neolithic, a language without words that speaks of cycles, rebirth, and the invisible forces that coil through existence. From the labyrinths of Crete to the petroglyphs of the American Southwest, the spiral is a shape that transcends culture, epoch, and continent, as if our ancestors shared a collective dream they could only express in these hypnotic curves. What makes the spiral so universally resonant starts with its primal simplicity. A single line curling inward or radiating outward mirrors the patterns etched into the natural world, the unfurling fiddlehead fern, the whirlpool's vortex, even the galaxies spinning overhead. Early humans didn't just observe these patterns, they worshipped them. In Malta, the temples of Haga Kim bear spiral altars where priestesses may have danced in corkscrew motions, reenacting the path of souls. The Maori of New Zealand carved the koru, a spiral inspired by the unfurling silver fern, into war canoes and amulets as a promise of renewal. Even the Hopewell people of ancient Ohio pressed spirals into clay tablets, their meaning lost but their power undimmed by time. Dive deeper, and the spiral reveals itself as a metaphor for the human journey. Celtic artists wove it into intricate knotwork, symbolizing the cyclical nature of life and death, no beginning, no end, just perpetual motion. The ancient Greeks saw it in the meander, a labyrinthine path representing the twists of fate. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, the spiral's inward coil mirrors meditation's path, the long, winding route to enlightenment. Compare this to the quipu chords of the Inca, where spiral-knotted strings recorded stories and taxes in three-dimensional spirals of memory. The message is clear, whether carved in stone or tied in rope. The spiral is humanity's way of saying the path forward isn't straight, it loops, doubles back, and deepens. Modern science has only amplified the spiral's mystique. Fibonacci's sequence, that mathematical magic underpinning everything from seashells to hurricanes, proves these shapes aren't arbitrary, they're baked into the fabric of reality. Psychologists note how people instinctively doodle spirals during moments of introspection, as if the mind defaults to this shape when mapping inner landscapes. Even our DNA, the blueprint of life, twists in a double helix, nature's ultimate spiral. Yet the spiral's greatest power might be its ambiguity. Is it a whirlpool dragging us down or a staircase leading upward? A symbol of chaos or transcendence, perhaps it's both. The same spiral that adorned shamanic drums to induce trances now grots corporate logos promising growth. It's a shape that refuses to be pinned down, adapting to every era's hunger for meaning. Whether etched by a Bronze Age hand or a modern tattoo needle, the spiral whispers the same question: are you moving in circles or are you climbing? The answer depends on which way you turn. From the ashes of its own destruction, the phoenix rises, an emblem of rebirth so potent it has soared through mythologies from the Nile to the Aegean, its fiery plumage igniting humanity's fascination with second chances. The story begins in Egypt, where the Bennu bird, a heron-like creature with golden and scarlet feathers, perched atop sacred obelisks at Heliopolis. Egyptians believed this celestial being cyclically regenerated itself, emerging anew from the pyre of its predecessor like the sun reborn at dawn. The Bennu wasn't just a bird, it was the soul of Osiris, the god of resurrection, and a living metaphor for the Nile's annual flooding destruction begetting fertility, death birthing life. Temples enshrined its image alongside hieroglyphs declaring, "I am the Bennu, the soul of Ra, the guide of the gods in the Duat." Here, rebirth wasn't poetic, it was geological, as reliable as the rivers rise and fall. Now fly westward to ancient Greece, where the phoenix myth absorbed new fire. Herodotus, ever the eager chronicler, described a radiant eagle-sized bird that migrated from Arabia to Heliopolis every 500 years, bearing its father's myrrh-coated corpse to burn on the altar of Ra. But the Greeks added a twist. The phoenix didn't just die and revive, it chose its end, gathering cinnamon and spices into a nest that would combust from the sun's heat, only for a younger version to wriggle free from the ashes. This wasn't passive renewal, it was a voluntary transformation, an act of will that resonated with philosophers like Plato, who saw the phoenix as proof of the soul's immortality. Roman poets like Ovid polished the tale further, their phoenix rising, not borrowed from another but itself its own seed, a paradox of solitude and continuity that captivated emperors and slaves alike. Alchemists of the Middle Ages seized the symbol with both hands, transmuting it into a metaphor for the magnum opus, their elusive quest to turn base metals into gold. In cryptic manuscripts like the Rosarium Philosophorum, the phoenix appears amid flames, its wings dripping with the blood of transformation, representing the final stage of purification. For these seekers, the bird wasn't just a myth, it was a blueprint. Its death mirrored the nigredo, the blackening of matter in the crucible, while its rebirth symbolized the rubedo, the red dawn of perfected gold. Even the ashes left behind were coveted as lapis phonesis, a substance rumored to heal wounds and prolong life. The phoenix in their eyes was chemistry made sacred. What's astonishing is how effortlessly the phoenix adapted to new eras. Early Christians grafted it onto their own narratives, seeing in its resurrection a parallel to Christ's empty tomb. Mosaics in Roman cathedrals depict it beside crosses, its wings outstretched like a promise. In China, the fenghuang, often conflated with the phoenix, represented marital harmony and imperial virtue, its 5 colors mirroring Confucian virtues. Fast forward to modern times and the bird flares up in pop culture. From Dumbledore's loyal fox in Harry Potter to the rebel emblem in Hunger Games, its feathers still rustle with defiance. The phoenix endures because it answers a fear deeper than death, the terror of irrelevance. Unlike the cyclical Ouroboros or the static jade pillar, the phoenix offers agency. It doesn't just rise, it chooses to rise, gathering the scraps of its past to fuel its future. Whether painted on an Egyptian sarcophagus or inked onto a survivor's skin, its message crackles with urgency. Annihilation isn't the end. It's the kindling. The double-headed eagle stares in 2 directions at once, a creature of paradox, its gaze split between east and west, past and future, earth and heaven. This isn't just a heraldic quirk, it's a visual manifesto of imperial ambition, a symbol so potent it soared from the dust of ancient Mesopotamia to the banners of Byzantine emperors and the secret rituals of Freemasons. Begin with the Hittites, those Bronze Age powerhouse builders who carved the earliest known double-headed eagles into stone gates around 1400 BCE at their capital, Hattusa. Here, the eagle wasn't just a bird, it was a divine sentinel, its twin heads representing the king's dual role as both military conqueror and spiritual guardian. Archaeologists find it flanked by lions and sphinxes, a hybrid creature fit for a civilization that bridged Anatolia and Mesopotamia, its wings spread as if to eclipse the sun itself. Then came Byzantium, where the double-headed eagle took flight as the ultimate emblem of Roman continuity. Picture the imperial palaces of Constantinople, where silk banners embroidered with golden eagles fluttered above ceremonies, blending Christian pomp with Roman might. The symbolism here was razor-sharp. One head watched over Europe, the other over Asia, reflecting Byzantium's precarious balance between 2 worlds. Emperors like the Palaiologos dynasty wielded it as a rebuke to the fractured West, proof that true Roman authority still thrived in the East. Even after the Ottomans stormed Constantinople in 1453, the eagle didn't vanish. It migrated to the courts of Russian Tsars who claimed Byzantium's mantle, their own double-headed birds clutching orb and scepter, feathers bristling with orthodox crosses. Now descend into the shadowy halls of Masonic lodges, where the double-headed eagle resurfaces with esoteric flair. Adopted by the Scottish Rite in the 18th century, it became the Eagle of Lagash, its heads now symbolizing the duality of human nature, reason and passion, mortality and divinity. Alchemical manuscripts reimagined its wings as the union of sulfur and mercury, while occultists like Eliphas Levi saw it as a cipher for the equilibrium of opposing forces. The irony is rich. A symbol once flaunted by emperors now whispered secrets to initiates, its power sublimated into allegory. What makes the double-headed eagle endure? Perhaps its genius lies in its mutability. To the Hittites, it was brute sovereignty. To Byzantium, a geopolitical claim. To Masons, a puzzle of the soul. Yet in all forms, it dares to ask, can one being truly look two ways at once? The answer, etched in stone and silk and ritual, seems to be a defiant yes, not as a contradiction, but as a declaration that true power thrives in the tension between opposites. The double-headed eagle doesn't just watch, it challenges. From the lotus rising through mud to the phoenix reborn from ashes, these 25 symbols reveal something extraordinary, that across oceans and centuries, humanity has been whispering the same truths in different tongues. Whether etched in stone, woven into temple walls, or carried as talismans, they aren't just designs, they're mirrors reflecting our deepest fears, hopes, and questions about existence. The thunderbolt and the spiral, the tree and the labyrinth, each one tells a story about balance, resilience, and the eternal dance between chaos and order. What's remarkable isn't just their shared visual language, but how they adapt, enduring long after the civilizations that birthed them have faded into dust. Consider the contradictions. The swastikas fall from sacred to scarred, the caduceus's accidental medical fame, the Triskelion's endless chase. These symbols don't just represent ideas, they evolve with us, absorbing our triumphs and failures. They're proof that meaning isn't fixed, it's a living thing shaped by the hands that carve it and the eyes that interpret it. The Jed pillar and the Orn, the Vegvísir and the Mandala, each one began as a local truth but grew into something universal, transcending borders and belief systems. So what ties them together? A yearning to make sense of the unseen. The Ankh's promise of eternal life, the Yin-Yang's embrace of opposites, the Ouroboros' loop of renewal, they're all attempts to map the mysteries we still grapple with today. Science may explain lightning, but we still flinch at thunder. Technology connects us, but we still search for symbols that speak to something deeper than logic. This is where your journey begins. Maybe one of these symbols resonates with you: the Hamsa's protective gaze, the meander's endless path, or Mjolnir's unbreakable might. Or perhaps you've spotted others hidden in plain sight, waiting to be decoded. Share them, debate them, let them spark conversations, because these symbols aren't relics. They're invitations to wonder, to question, and to remember that long before algorithms and alphabets, we were painting our prayers in shapes that even time couldn't